So good afternoon, everyone, one more time. And it is an absolute honor for me to be facilitating this webinar today, uh, which brings two remarkable conservationists to share their story. We have with us Dr. Shivani Bhalla, a remarkable wildlife conservationist and the founder of Ewaso Lions. Ewaso Lions is an innovative organization that aims to protect African lions and promote harmonious coexistence between humans and wildlife. Shivani has nearly 2 decades of experience in the field and numerous global recognitions. She has become an icon in lion conservation. She has been inspiring young conservationists and raising awareness about the challenges that face these majestic animals. Truly an honor to have you here, Shivani. We are also privileged to have Toby Otieno. Toby is a seasoned researcher and a field expert with vast experience of working with National Museums of Kenya and the Mpala Research Center in Laikipia. As the Director of Impact and Operations at Ewaso Lions, Toby plays a crucial role in managing research programs and monitoring activities to support the organization's mission. What's even more exciting is that Toby is embarking on a PhD with the University of York, if I'm not mistaken, in 2023 to study the impact of infrastructure development on lion movements. So today, Shivani and Toby will be talking about conserving Kenya's lions and other large carnivores through community-led approaches. And with that, I'd like to get out of the way and request Shivani and Toby to take over and inspire us, please. Over to the two of you. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thanks so much, Kostub. And thank you everyone for being here. It's so great to see all your names and where you're all at. It's fantastic. And Justine, Rocky, thank you for setting this up. It's really such an honor and pleasure to be here with all of you today. I'm speaking to you from Samburu, from our Ewaso Lions camp, which is in northern Kenya. And Toby is en route in a car from Nairobi. And as Kostub said, we're going to be, I'll speak first, then Toby, and then we're really happy to take lots of questions at the end. We love discussion, and it really gets us thinking about different things. So I'm gonna share my screen now and just okay. So just a quick background of where we are. We're here up in northern Kenya, and we are in the Samburu Isiolo ecosystem. So actually where I'm sitting right now is, I can see this, our river is right here in front of us. And it is, the work we do is very much along this river. We get our name from this river. Ewaso Lions comes from this amazing river, which is called the Ewaso River. And it's really the heart of this landscape. It's where communities, their livestock and wildlife all really depend on. And it's truly the heart of this region, and it's just spectacular. We work in 3 protected areas. So these are national reserves that have been gazetted by the local county. And those are Samburu, Buffalo Springs, and Shaba. But most of our work is in community conservancies, and we work across 11 community conservancies. These are areas where communities, their livestock, all live in various settlements, and wildlife live alongside them. And this is not new. Wildlife and communities have been coexisting for generations. We started working in one community conservancy back in 2008, and then over time, we gradually expanded our reach. And now we're covering, including the protected areas, we're covering about 4,500 square kilometers. So over time, as the lions started moving more, our project also grew and started sort of following the lions and expanded the area we're covering. This is an unfenced landscape. Our protected areas are actually very small. They cover only about 500 square kilometers. So lions and other wildlife are constantly moving in and out of the protected areas. But what has been exciting to see is that in the last 10 years, lions and other wildlife have actually made these community conservancies their home, and they've become resident in them. So there's actually less movement back into the protected areas, but there's more movement of lions and other wildlife through the community landscape, which is an exciting change that we have seen over time. So why lions? I think you all know this, but lions are in trouble, and there's only about 20,000 lions left in Africa, and their numbers have halved in the last 25 years. In Kenya, the last survey that the government did about 4 years ago estimated numbers at about 2,000, 2,500 lions. Here in northern Kenya, when we started Ewaso Lions, actually no one had any idea. We didn't know how many lions were here. It's a very challenging landscape for lions because of the land, and I'll go into that in a second. But we didn't know. We didn't actually know what was happening to the lions. We didn't know how many there were. We didn't know where they were moving through. But there was one thing that was quite clear back in sort of 2003, 2004. We knew that every time lions left the protected areas and would come out into the community landscape, very few would come back, or they would just totally disappear. And this is really what sparked my interest. I was really wondering what was going on in these community landscapes, what was happening to the lion population every time they left the protected areas. And it was we figured it out quite early on that they just were never feeling safe out here. And often they were being killed, or they would come back very quickly into the protected areas. And that's pretty much how Ewaso Lions began, is just trying to understand what is going on with the lions in these community areas, and what can we do to continue to have that coexistence between the Samburu communities and lions. So yes, very few lions were known back in 2007. In fact, we only knew 11. And then over time, the population has gradually increased, and now we're monitoring about 50 lions in northern Kenya. And this is the last most significant lion population in the whole country as you go northward. So further north of us, there's just sort of very few individuals, but there's no solid population. This is the furthest, most significant lion population we have in the country. So the communities we work with the Samburu mainly, but also the Turkana. So there are about 6 different ethnic groups that live in this area. They're all pastoralists. Their lives depend on their livestock, very similar to all of the areas you work in. Cows, camels, donkeys, sheep. It's very much their way of life here. Camels are new to this environment. I would say camels sort of moved here. The Samburu community started embracing camels much more, I would say, in the last 10 to 15 years, because they're so much more drought resistant. So the number of camels has really increased here. And as I mentioned, the communities here have lived alongside wildlife for generations. And the challenge is it's just becoming much harder. And although coexistence is definitely not something new here, a lot of people said, Shivani, did you come and teach the Samburus how to coexist? I definitely didn't do that. In fact, I've been learning so much about their cultural ways and how they have coexisted forever. The challenge is it's getting harder. There's a lot of livestock. There's very little water. There's very little grass. And there's just so many new threats that have come along, which is making that coexistence such a big challenge now. So our role as Ewaso Lions from the beginning has been, what can we do to support our communities to continue that coexistence despite all these new threats and challenges? And what can we come up with together so that that coexistence continues? This is very much what the land looks like. And this is really the main problem we're facing. It's a very degraded landscape. There's no grass. And it's a huge challenge because herbivore numbers really are going down because they just struggle to survive in this very arid landscape. We go through frequent droughts, and it's something that is just getting worse and worse over the last 10 years. I remember back in 2009, the big river, the Ewaso River, dried up for 10 months that year. And it was such a challenge for everything because there's no other water. And the communities really struggled. Livestock died in huge numbers and herbivore numbers just plummeted. In fact, we lost our entire buffalo population back in 2009. And so every year since then, we're now seeing the same sort of trend. We're seeing the river dries up every year. We're just seeing a very degraded landscape. And the last 3 years we've been, I'm sure you've heard of this, but we've been in a dreadful drought. And the river was dry for most of last year and the year before. And there's just been no grass. And for the first time ever, we've seen a humanitarian crisis, because in the past, it was always livestock and wildlife struggling. But last year in particular, people were really hungry. And it just shows that this is such a fragile landscape. It's incredibly resilient, but it's also very, very challenging. But on a good note, the last couple of weeks, it has not stopped raining. And I mean, I wish I could show you the landscape around us right now. It doesn't look like this. It doesn't look like this sort of dry desert that you see in your screen in front of you. It's absolutely spectacular. The river has been flowing for a couple of weeks and it's green all around. So we know that at least this will keep everyone going, at least for the next 6 months. But we're also aware that droughts are they're common, they're frequent, they're not going to go anywhere. And I think for so long we kept looking at droughts as a crisis and, oh, we're in another drought, what should we do? And we'd scramble. But now we've incorporated drought management in our day-to-day, because although it's amazing right now and the river's flowing and it's green, things will change. And we're very aware of that. And now it is part of our day-to-day. So when you do get droughts like this, and when lions are struggling to find enough food because the prey numbers are low, unfortunately, this is when we get a lot of conflict. And I know you're all very aware and you can understand these issues of livestock attacks by lions. And it, of course, understandably, when camels and cows are being killed by lions, there's so much anger and resentment, and often lions are shot in retaliation. There's a lot of guns in this area, and they will go out and shoot lions. So that was very much the first threat that we were dealing with back in 2008 and 9, was this threat of retaliatory killing. So what did we do about this? I'm going to hand over to Toby, who's going to tell you a little bit about our first program and how we really try to address this threat.
Thank you, Shivani, and thanks for everyone for being here. I know Shivani has talked about all the challenges we are going through Samburu, but now that begs the question, what are we doing about it as Ewaso Lions, as a project? And we do have like a number of programs, and each of the programs are actually actually focused on different demographics in which we have within the within the communities in which you work with. The first program we started with is the Warrior Watch program. This program was started by Generia, who is from within this community. By then, he was this young warrior who started working out with Shivani plus two other, which is Francis and Jeremiah. And I think the question he asked was, it is the warriors who, like on a daily basis, run into lions while they're protecting their livestock, while they're taking care of the livestock. Why don't we actually go ahead and involve the warriors? And that was the birth of Warrior Watch program. So what do they do? Warrior Watch program, what we do is, one of the things they do is try to minimize conflict. Because, by using their amazing skills of lion tracking and also GPS collars, knowing where the lions are in the first thing in the morning, and then communicating that back to the community, and by so doing that, the community are able to avoid taking their livestock where the lions are. And by doing that, we are actually protecting the lions and also protecting the livestock. And that's one of the things, key things they do, is actually minimizing conflict before it happens. But also the other thing they also do is that in occasions when conflict happens, they are the first responders. They are the first team to actually get there. And when they get into where the conflict has happened, their key role is to actually talk down the livestock others so that at least they don't go after the lions. I mean, again, preventing retaliatory killing, which, as Shivani mentioned, was when we started, was the key challenge that was facing the lions. And the other thing they also do is also like lion monitoring. We identify all our lions. Every single lion we are monitoring individually and we've given them names. So one of the things the Warrior Watch do is actually track the lions, figure out where track the lions, identify who is the mother of who is the father of who, and where they are within the landscape. Warrior Watch, program is based on the warriors, which is a very, very key demographic within these communities in which we work with. And each, after 15 or 20 years so, there's always like a new generation of warriors coming in to replace the old warriors. For example, Generia when started, he was a warrior. He was a young warrior by then, but right now he has graduated to become an elder. And right now, last year, we had a new cohort of warriors, a new generation of warriors to actually replace the old elders, like the generation now becoming the elders. And this amazing group of warriors right now is led by Lycasian. Lycasian is like these young warriors, actually I like this guy. I love this guy. He's these young warriors who most of the time is always so much full of energy. He always wants to know about lands. And actually right now, he knows lands better than everybody else within the entire organization. So and what we're trying to do is have like a transition between the old warriors and the new warriors. And what we have done like right now, the generation of the warriors that was Generia's generation has actually now moved to our elders position. Now we call them the lion governors, but they've been replaced by the new generation of the warriors. So that is one of the programs we do. The other program we do, we have is Mama Simba. Some years back, after Warrior Watch had been started, these two amazing women called Parasarori and Monteli kept on coming to Shivani. Remember, Shivani keeps on telling me this story. Like, kept on coming to the camp, to the old camp which we have. Hey, we also want to be involved, you know. We want to be part of it. It can't be just the warriors. We also want to be part of it, you know. And these, they based it on the belief that from this community, all wildlife belongs to women, you know. The livestock might belongs to men, but all wildlife belongs to women. So based on this, they like this strong conviction that they had to be involved. And so they kept on nudging until like Shivani and the rest of the team tell, okay, you, Parasori and you, Muteli, go ahead and please come up with the program. And that was the birth of Mama Simba program. And right now, Mama Simba has a new strategy since early this year. And some of the things they're doing within the Mama Simba program involves lion habitat restoration. You know, like Shivani has talked about the way lots of drought, lots of land degradation. And now one of the key roles that the Mama Simba are actually doing is actually trying to revert that. So they do lion habitat restoration by getting involved during drought, digging watering points for the wildlife, and also removing invasive species, which is a new threat to this area. Yeah? There's a new invasive species plan that is like, if nothing is done, is actually going to colonize like the entire of the landscape in which we work. So Mama Simbas are working tirelessly to uproot these invasive species before they colonize the entire area completely. And so that is one of the key things the Mama Simba are doing. Munteli, oh my God, this is such an amazing woman. Coming from the community, from never going to school, from being a traditional culturally woman, Munteli is the first within this community, within Samburu, the entire Samburu community, the first woman to actually drive a car. And I remember the like stories to an extent, like people were coming from like kilometers and kilometers away to just come and see this woman, this Samburu woman who is driving. And this is something that has never learned before. And so this is the power of the Mama Simba program, you know, giving the women empowerment, empowering the women to actually go beyond what is expected of them. And with this passion and enthusiasm they have in them, we believe and actually believe that they're going to do more when it comes to what they do for the program. And so Munteli, yeah. Growing up in Kenya, you know, most of the stories you hear from people, you go outside and you meet people, is that Kenya is full of wildlife, you know. And that everyone, whenever like you travel outside Kenya, the expectation is coming from Kenya, definitely you've seen a lion, or you've seen an elephant, or you've seen like all these amazing wildlife that are in Africa. But the sad bit of it is that most kids growing in Kenya have actually never have experience when it comes to wildlife. They never actually have positive experience in which some people or a majority of the people might actually come out of Kenya, get into Kenya and actually see this firsthand before they see that. And because of that, we started Lion Kids Camp. And what Lion Kids Camp is doing is actually involving both school-going children and others who don't go to school to actually show them the positive side of the lions. Because most of the times, the only stories they know about the lions and leopards is when leopards or lions creep out of the bush and then go kill their goats, you know, and or their livestock. And this is something, as a pastoralist community, livestock, they actually hold it very, very dearly in their heart. And so most of the times, negative stories about lions or all the other predators. But what the Lions Kids Camp is doing is actually involving this kid to see the positive sides of the lions. And how do we do that? We have a program, a 5-day program that involves lectures, doing like lectures, showing them films, taking them for a game drive, which most of these kids, they're lions within the landscape, but they never actually seen a lion like you'll see a lion when you go for a game drive. So one of the things and one of the most exciting you do is take them for the game drive, and usually their faces, like the smiles on their faces for these kids seeing their first lion is just so spectacular. And apart from that, the other thing that we do in this 5-day program is also we have a conservation game that was developed by us. This is a game that I know you all work in conservation, and this is a game that if any of you is interested in something that can be actually modified to within where you're working, to actually you can actually use where you're working. So this is a game where what this game was actually trying to put them in a perspective where what will you do if a lion moves like within the landscape? What should you do as a herder, or what should you do as a family, or what should you do as a community, and what does a lion needs within the landscape? So this game is focused on that. It's more like trying to teach the kids on what they actually need to do, or what part they actually take when it comes to land conservation. It's such an amazing thing how such program has actually been so important when it comes to these kids. And Lycasian was one of the first kids who attended the first Lions Kids Camp we held. And this guy had to change his name several times so that at least he could actually comes back for the for the second and or for the subsequent kids camp we had. And that to us just showed that how that experience, how much passion he had for like being part of this. And so he kept on changing name, you know, he could come with a different name, but when it comes to the actual camp, say, oh, were you not like, no. Were you not in the previous camp? No, that's not me, you know? And eventually on our 10th year anniversary, we invited him, and he gave like a very powerful speech to hundreds and hundreds of attendants who had come for the ceremony. And right now, Lycasian has been recruited as part of the new generation of warriors and is leading that team. And the passion this guy has, oh my God. I remember the other day, I don't know, he has like a team of his warriors, and then we were like having a chat. He was telling me, oh, there's one of our warriors who is not like in line. And I was so surprised. He took the initiative to actually get the warrior to come and tell him, you're going to sit here for the next 2 weeks, you know? You're not going back to a station, you're going to be in for the next 2 days. For the next 2 weeks, I want to see what you're doing and teach you how the work should be done. And that is just the passion of like this young warrior, you know? And those are the things that sometimes, it keeps us alive and gives us the energy to do what we do.
So thanks, Toby. Our 3 programs, Warrior Watch, Mama Simba, Kids Camp, we have evaluated Warrior Watch in particular for twice now over the last 10 years. And it's quite interesting for us now to have a new group of warriors, because this transition is a great opportunity for us to evaluate it again, to hopefully show that Warrior Watch can work through generations. So that's something we're really looking forward to doing later this year. Both our previous evaluations were done independently. We've never evaluated Mama Simba, so that again is something we're looking forward to doing. And Kids Camp is something we evaluate per camp, just to see the sort of the impact it's having. Things have changed though. So Warrior Watch, Mama Simba, Kids Camp, our programs we started, Warrior Watch started in 2010. The other 2 programs started in 2013. So it's amazing. It's been 10 years. And over time, the challenges that we face and the threats that lions face has changed. And the threat of retaliatory killing is not as big a threat anymore. But with the droughts and the changes in the landscape, we're seeing this a lot more, as I mentioned earlier, a dry river. And what's happening here is just there's so much more congregation between communities, livestock, and wildlife. This picture was taken just below our camp, and the communities are there with their livestock, but right opposite in those thick green bushes, there's leopards, elephants, lions. And what this has led to is a new threat that sort of crept up on us probably about 5 years ago, and that's the threat of disease. And I'm going to focus a little bit more on this because it's something that for a while we didn't really know how to handle it or what to even do, but we started seeing our critically endangered wild dog population just disappear. Wild dogs are, we've only got a few thousand left in the country, and northern Kenya was a great stronghold for them, but they just disappeared in 2017. When distemper came and wiped them out. So we were seeing this new threat, but we just weren't quite sure what to do because we didn't have the capacity to deal with this new emerging threat. This picture wasn't taken here. It was taken in Tanzania, and it was a dog with rabies that was attacking this young male lion. And distemper has also wiped out lion populations in southern Kenya. And we just saw that this was something with our small population, we could not afford distemper and rabies to come and affect the lion population. So again, now this was in 2019, we saw another wild dog with distemper, and it's an unforgiving disease, as you all know. And we just watched wild dogs drop dead literally in a week. We lost all of them. And so finally, we were able to build a capacity of our team and bring on board a new program, which is really looking at improving domestic animal welfare. Dogs play a hugely important role within the communities here. They are out herding every single day with livestock owners, really alerting the livestock owner to the presence of carnivores. They're also great night watchmen, because in the villages, in the homesteads at night, when they sense a hyena or a leopard coming close to the village at night, they're the ones who really bark so much that they alert the owner to come out and chase the hyena away. So the value is huge, but the challenge was that the domestic dogs were suffering a lot from diseases and just poor welfare. So we started this program in 2019, Kura's Pride, named after my dog Kura, who's pictured there at the bottom. And Kura was a rescue. He was from the village, and he arrived in very poor form, very poor condition, but 3 months of care, and he suddenly just became the most vigilant, alert dog. And he's the one who kind of inspired us to do more for domestic animals and provide veterinary care and improve their welfare so they can do a better job when they're out with the communities herding or back in the village at night. So we now have a domestic animal veterinary unit, and we have a vehicle. It's a mobile vehicle that goes around and vaccinates domestic dogs and cats. It also treats domestic animals that have been attacked by wildlife. Now, this is something that had been happening for such a long time here. Every time lions would attack a camel, we couldn't do anything because we're not vets. And often, we'd give them sort of a spray of antiseptic and hope for the best, but it was never good enough. And finally, now we have a vet in our team who treats camels that have been attacked by lions. And in fact, this picture was taken on her first day. She just arrived, and this camel had been attacked by a lion. She's treated goats that have been attacked by crocodiles, and dogs that have been attacked by baboons, and dogs that have been attacked by snakes and scorpions. The amount that this project has done in just 2 years is astounding. And what's really exciting to see is its immediate impact. You can see a very sick dog, but with Jess and Solomon, who are in this picture, coming in and treating the dogs, you see them recover literally overnight. And it's been a resounding success. We've done over 6,000 animal vaccinations in the last couple of years with our partners. This is one of our partnership programs. We work with an extraordinary organization called Vet in Wild and the Samburu County Department of Veterinary Services. So we're actually partnering with the local government on this. This was a dog that was, again, struggling with distemper. Jess and Solomon went out and put hundreds of dogs on drips, and it was just amazing to see them bounce back and recover in a couple of days. This is Solomon, who's now heading to veterinary school. So he's a student we used to sponsor from down the road, and he's been with us for 10 years now, and he's joining veterinary school in September. So we're really hoping at some point after he becomes a vet, we can expand this veterinary program and have another mobile unit south of the river, because currently it's only working in one area. And as you know, diseases are all over and dogs are moving everywhere. Every time there's a drought, the communities move with their dogs. So we're really hoping that we can expand the coverage of this program in the next couple of years. What has all this led to? Our community work and, sort of having these community-led initiatives. Our lion population, as I mentioned, is the highest it's been now in 15 years, and we have about 50 lions. But the biggest change we've had is we now have more lions within community areas than the park, the protected areas. We have lions breeding successfully outside of the protected areas. And this is one extraordinary example, is this female called Naramat. She was born inside the protected area, but she moved out to the community landscape many years ago, and she lived alone. And she taught us that lions here actually live a much better life when they're solitary. And this is something not what I ever expected. As a child growing up here, I always saw big prides of lions in southern Kenya, but lions in northern Kenya are solitary, and they do much better when they're alone. So she found a male somewhere, and she's actually had cubs numerous times. She taught her cubs how to hunt at younger ages than we've previously recorded in the protected areas. We saw 3-month-old lion cubs hunting baby dik-dik antelopes and doing really well at it. So this is something quite unique to northern Kenya, seeing the solitary nature of lions. I think it's not what people expect. Everyone is expecting big prides of sleeping lions. Our lions are never really sleeping. They're so active because they've got to hunt, including our males. A lot of people ask me, Shivani, lions must be so boring to study because they just keep sleeping. Our lions are not like that, because it's a very, very hard landscape, and they've got to be hunting and really hiding all day and coming out at night. These were some of her cubs she had a couple of years ago, and we lost one of them sadly, but then the two of them also had cubs. So these are Naramat's grand cubs who were born 2 years ago. We sadly did lose Naramat exactly 2 years ago now. She was killed by another male lion. So she was a real symbol of courage and coexistence within this community. And I remember when she was really badly injured, and it was we were waiting for the vet to come, the community interest in her was incredible. We had community members from everywhere asking us, how is Naramat? Is she okay? Will she survive? Everyone was so invested in her life and who she was, because she really was the symbol of coexistence. But the great news is that her legacy continues, and her cubs and her grand cubs are actually very close to our camp. This is some of our team. I always like to put this picture on because Ewaso Lions is not me. It's not me and Toby. It's this incredible team. And we grew from about 4 in the early years to 64. We are a team of 64 now, half of which are women, and most of who are from this community here in northern Kenya. And it's an incredible group. They inspire me every single day. in how just dedicated they are and how much they love lions. Generia at this moment is with Nanai, one of our most well-known lionesses, who's really struggling. She's been struggling for many months now. She had this huge growth that developed in her mouth, and we did what we know as to be in our knowledge, the first lion operation in northern Kenya. We did under a bush to remove this growth so she could hunt and continue to feed her cubs. And the operation was so successful, but unfortunately we saw her a few days ago, and it looks like that growth is developing again. And Generia will never sleep. If Nana is in trouble, he's there with her all day, every day, because she's a very special lioness and very well known to the community, to our team, to the protected area management. And this is just one example of just how our team is when it comes to lion conservation and keeping them alive. So thank you all so much. Toby, and our email addresses are there. We're fairly active on social media, but not so great. You guys are amazing, by the way. I keep wanting to pick up bits and pieces from the network, but please do follow us. And I'm going to stop sharing now. And I hope, Kastub, we have some time for some questions.
Oh, well, Shivani and Toby, this was an education in so many things. How to make catchy presentations, how to do conservation, how to stick to time, if I may say so. You guys are amazing. Oh, absolutely. I must say this was absolutely, absolutely wonderful. We loved it. Thank you so much. We do seem to have a few questions, and I'm just going to go look up. All right. So I'll start with the first question, which is by Arash. And Arash, please feel free to switch on your mic in case I do not do justice to the way your question's written. So Arash says, fascinating work. Thanks for sharing it here. I'm curious to know about the instruments to keep the participants in these initiatives, for instance, the warriors, enthusiastic about their work and conservation in general. Are there any sorts of monetary or non-monetary compensation for the work they do? If so, how the necessary support is secured? That's from Arash.
So I think it's a money question, so I'm going to take that one.
Okay.
So yes, all our warriors are fully employed. So our whole team, our team of 64, are employed by the organization, and they all receive monthly salaries and benefits and the necessary support. How it's secured, well, that's I would say 70% of my work is fundraising, keeping the project going. And a lot of our funding comes from the US. We are partners with the Wildlife Conservation Network. So once a year, we go to the US, meet some of our donors, try and meet new ones, give talks about our work, and hopefully secure funding for the next year. We're pretty bad at writing grants, and we never seem to get any grants out. So we really do rely a lot on individual donations, and we're very lucky to have some really strong supporters of ours who've kept us going for many, many years. So yes, everyone's fully employed, and our budget now is about $1 million a year, which includes all the salaries and everything for the whole team. So hopefully, I think that was the question.
Thank you so much, Shivani. Absolutely. We have another question by Anna Engelman. Forgive me if I have pronounced your name wrongly, but she's asking, how can you explain why retaliatory killing is not as much of a threat anymore, even though you mentioned that lions are now roaming more into the resident areas and even settling there?
Right.
Again, she acknowledges what I just said. Awesome presentation. Thank you so much for sharing your experience.
Shiv, can I have a first go at this?
Please go for it.
I mean, the short answer is community-led conservation. Yeah, that's like the short answer. But basically, actually, a few weeks ago, we are looking at our data, and what we find out, like right now, since we started, the number of lions has been going up, like steadily but slow, but has been going up. And last year, 2022, is the year we recorded the highest number of lions. So in terms of the number of lions is going up. And then we tried to have like a quick look at the conflicts that we're recording. The conflicts that we're recording are more or less kind of like the same throughout the year. I mean, throughout the times that we worked. but the tolerance level since we started is actually going up, you know. And so basically what we attribute this to retaliatory killing is not becoming much of a threat because of the tolerance level of the community. And this has been proven by our evaluation we did on the Warrior Watch program, which again, we are planning to do through the new project. With the new grant, we are planning to do that again, another evaluation. But the evaluation we did was, we showed that Warrior Watch program itself was actually helping increasing the tolerance of the community towards lions. So in terms of attitude and perceptions of lions, that is going up. And that it's attributed to the programs we do, which is more involved with the community. And the more you get the community to be part of this conservation project, then definitely the tolerance level is going to go up. Lions are going to find these areas more comfortable living in. And so just to answer your question, we attribute it to the work that we do with the community.
Yes, I understand that. Thank you so much for answering the question. Just kind of a follow-up, or what I really meant with that was because I imagine that when there is more lions there is also going to be more livestock killings, like especially now with the droughts and everything. Right. So I don't know, are you also doing something to deter them from killing livestock, or how does that work?
I mean, she will look for this. But one of the things that we've always our focus has been always to build on how the community, remember these communities have been pastoralist ever, to build on that, to build on that and to encourage them to do what they need to do or what they have been doing for a very long time. So one of the things like in our talks, in our meetings with them, is actually to just encourage them to keep on, let's say, for example, enforce your boma the way you've been doing it for a very long time, which is basically using the thorn bushes. And anything like the lion lights. I know a lot of people ask us about the lion lights, or if you like anything about that. We try not to go that direction. We try to build more on their skills, which they have, and also to build on the things that they are able to actually do if by any chance we are not around. So our talks, our interaction with them is actually supporting more of what they've been doing, and more again, Warrior Watch program. One of the things that we try to do is try to minimize conflict before it happens by knowing where the lions are, and also by trying to just alert the community where the lions are. And with that, it's actually contributes to much of the conflict not happening.
Just to add, most of the conflict we encounter is during the day when there's lost livestock. So it's really an issue of herding. And that's why connecting the Lion Kids Camp and working with young herders is so important, because then we're really targeting the group who is coming across lions and who are not doing the best job in herding. So that's another reason in our Lion Kids Camps, we've really focused more on herders than students, because they're the ones who can really play a big role when it comes to reducing that conflict from taking place during the day. And again, the dogs are connected too, because they can really alert the livestock owner to the presence of not just lions, but any large carnivore, to at least avoid that conflict from taking place in the first instance. So I think all the programs are connected to try and reduce conflict from happening.
Thank you so
much. Thank you so much, both of you. And thanks, Anna, for the question. I'll quickly move to the next question. This is from our own Justine. She's asking, are there new threats such as infrastructure? And since we already know it's a big looming and actually an current threat already in the snow leopard landscapes, and the teams are trying to address and mitigate. What's the situation out there? And there you go, Toby. I think this is for you directly, right?
Right. Hey, thanks for the question. Actually, it's the same situation out here in northern Kenya. For a very long time, northern Kenya has been kind of underdeveloped for a very long time. But in the recent past, the government and a lot of development organizations have been actually focusing more on northern Kenya. And right now in the present, there's a mega project called LAPSET, government project that is supposed to bring in railway, supposed to bring in road, which is already built, highway, And also coming soon is a pipeline. And also coming part of this project is the mega, what they call them, resort cities within this landscape. And so, yes, they're like, I mean, the mega projects coming, the development projects coming in, and this for sure is bound to affect livestock movement, wildlife and lions movement, and the community way of life. And so sometime soon, I'm so excited to be maybe going in to do my PhD to actually look into this. With the new development infrastructure coming in, how is that going to affect the community way of life? How is that going to affect the lion movement and other wildlife? So yeah, sometimes soon, I haven't quite got the details, but I'm like so interested to look into that soon. But on the same note, we also have another program, a joint program between Ewaso Lions and Grave Zebra Trust, which is another organization, our neighbors, on infrastructure. We call it bioinfrastructure program. And basically what the program is doing is creating a link between the communities and the development agency and the government. So what this program is, like amazing lady called Sarah. She's just amazing, like in connecting, bridging that gap between the development agencies, the government, and the community. Because what has been happening in the past is the government or the development agencies, when they hear an NGO, they always assume that's going to be a fight. But we're trying to do it like the other way around. How can we actually work together with the development agency to make sure even if the developments come in, we are still able to have both the community, everything done together in appropriate way, whether it's something to do with the wildlife, whether it's something to do with the community, and whether it's something to do with all aspects and all the stakeholders within the landscape. Should we add more?
Just very little. I think for so long when I moved here, I never imagined we'd get infrastructure in this area. And when I started hearing about it, I didn't quite believe it until I suddenly saw the power lines shoot up and just, sort of just emerge very quickly. And it was very gloomy those early years. I thought, what on earth are we going to do? I mean, this is a huge government project. It's going to totally change the face of Northern Kenya. And I didn't feel like I had the skills or the ability to deal with this at all. And I remember just having extremely gloomy days about it, picturing a railway in this landscape. I just couldn't. But I think this is where partnerships, again, this is a great example of the importance of partnerships and partnering with the Greve Zebra Trust and finding the right person to have the dialogue with development agencies. Yeah. And I remember trying myself, but the language I spoke was completely not the language they wanted to hear. And the person we found, Sarah, knows exactly how to speak the language development agencies want to hear. So she's been working with us for about 3 years now. And it's amazing the relationships she's built with those development agencies. I think they've stopped looking at us as, oh, those conservationists who are trying to stop us from doing X, Y, Z. It's absolutely not that. We're not trying to stop anything. We're just trying to make sure that communities, their needs, livestock, wildlife are all taken into account. And I think now what has really shown the success of relationship building, which took 3 years of her banging on doors in Nairobi, is they came to us last year and said, we now want a signed agreement with you and the Greve Zebra Trust and the government authority to go forward. So that was an incredible, just a sign that by slowly building these relationships and speaking the language they want to hear or they understand, is really what has led to this agreement that hopefully we'll sign in the next couple of months. So I'm less gloomy about it. I definitely was many years ago, but it's a great example of what the sort of the power of partnerships in a way.
Fascinating. Thank you. Thank you, Shivani, and thank you, Toby. I'll quickly finish the questions and then I'll come back. This is incredible. We have a question from Bilal Mustafa. He's asking if you have tried any livestock insurance or compensation schemes with the communities.
I'll answer that really quickly.
Yes.
Culturally, it is not something that the Samburu communities, when we started the project, would support, because culturally they have a lot of beliefs about lions and conflict, which I don't have time to go into today, but the government does compensation. So our government compensates for any human wildlife conflict. And what we decided to do 2 years ago when we started seeing a lot of conflict is we are supporting the communities to file their compensation claims, because they only have 24 hours to do that with the government office, and they're very, very far away. So to get to the government office within 24 hours is impossible. So we now have a conflict officer and a motorbike, and we transport the livestock owners to the government office so they can quickly fill out the claim, and hopefully at some point in a couple of years they will be compensated. So yes, we're very lucky that our government does provide compensation.
Right.
Toby, anything to add on that?
Yeah, just no, not much, but just that we're trying as much as possible not to go that direction, based on, just say it, based on the culture, and also even based on the sustainability of the compensation program. Yeah.
And that actually reminds me, years ago in one of these meetings with the governments, a government official himself was saying, you know what, earlier these wild pigs would go and raid a farmer's crop, and they'll say, oh, the wild pig came and ate my crop. Now after starting compensation, your wild pig has come and eaten my crop. So the ownership suddenly changes, right? And that's
Exactly,
an entirely different ballgame one has to address. So very nice. Thank you so much for sharing your thoughts. I have one more question from Nadia. Nadia is asking, where is her question? There. She wants to know if there are about the vaccination project, and how are they collaborating with the local vets to mobilize?
Yeah, so do you provide vaccination? So this is another one of our partnership programs. So we partner with a private vet who has experience in domestic animals and wildlife veterinary work for probably 30 years, and then the local county government. So we have a signed agreement with the local county government, and they have responsibilities to cover a whole part of Samburu. Samburu County is huge. We only work in Samburu East part of the county. So they cover Samburu North and Samburu Central, and they have agreed that through working with their local vets as well, and our veterinarian Jessica, we can cover Samburu East and sort of do this jointly. The vaccinations, the exciting thing is our government provides rabies vaccinations, but distemper we buy. So distemper is not freely available from the government, but rabies is. So the local county will give us the rabies vaccines for this area. We'll buy the distemper, and then we vaccinate the dogs and cats with one vaccination for both. So yes, it's a great initiative because it's our first joint partnership with the county, and that's because it's in their mandate to do this work, and it was in ours as well, because we were seeing the impact it was having on wildlife. So we signed the agreement exactly a year ago with the county government.
Thank you, Shivani. Sorry, go ahead.
Very quickly, she's mentioned the conservation game. So this is something I think Justine saw it when she was with us, but this is something, as Toby mentioned, that can be applied with any animal, and we have it written up. So then you can, anyone in the world can adapt it to the species they're working on. And it's great because it really gives communities an inside look of what it's like to be a lion in these areas. So I'm very happy to share that document with any of you in case you wanted to adapt it with snow leopards or anything. Because it's a really fun game, and we've played it not just with children, we played it with women and elders. Watching the elders play that game was the best. And warriors, that game can be applied to anyone, and it can be adapted to a specific context, which is exciting.
No, that's fantastic. And I know, and of course, Nadia's asking, but she, she's looking at it from the nature camp's perspective, so it's very exciting. Thank you. We may have just one more question here, and after that, I think we'll proceed to closing the meeting. Miha is asking, I'm wondering, do you occasionally do any aversive conditioning on lions that become too bold in approaching villages? That's an interesting one.
Yeah, so Botswana, I think, tried this out. It was either Botswana or Namibia. I can't remember. Toby, I don't know if you remember, but we've never tried it here. And one reason is luckily lions don't go up to villages as much. Most of the lions are solitary. They're too scared to go next to villages. The conflict we face is outside during the day when livestock are lost. And one really good thing about the lions in community areas is they have fear. They are scared of people, and having that fear is really what keeps them alive. And so they really spend all day hiding during the day. They're hiding in very thick bushes. But this is now, again, where we're facing the new threat of invasive species, which are taking away some of those indigenous trees that lions hide in. Anyway, so they hide during the day. They're coming out only at night and looking for any lost livestock, or during the day they might be quite opportunistic and come across a lost camel or a lost cow. So yeah, the aversion work hasn't been tested I don't think it's been tested in Kenya, but Rodrigo, who we were all together with a few months ago in Kyrgyzstan, actually has done work on that with jaguars in Mexico. So it's something he did write to us about. But that would be something, if anyone in Kenya was interested in doing, it would be through the government wildlife veterinary entity to try and test that out. But for us, we don't feel like it's something we need to try out at this point, although I think it was Botswana or somewhere did have a lot of good results from it.
Thank you, Shivani. And before I come back to what Justine mentioned, by the power vested in me by the organizers, I'd like to ask one question myself.
Okay.
And I was particularly curious about the dogs issue. Now it's extremely important what you're doing with vaccination, because of course there's disease transmission and other challenges. But have you seen any trend or in the dog populations? Because in many parts of the snow leopard range, and also beyond, even parts of the Indian subcontinent, dogs populations have grown dramatically, and they've become a huge issue. In some areas, they're the main predators of not just wild prey, but even livestock. They're depredating a lot on domestic livestock out in the mountains. In other areas, they're, of course, destroying a lot of wildlife as well. So any learnings or any experiences on that front?
So a little bit. I think generally all the dogs are owned, so we don't have stray populations here, which
That
is
makes a big difference.
One big difference. And they're always with their owners. The challenge sometimes is the owners don't feed them so much, so often they will go after squirrels or hares or dik-diks. And so through our work, we're actually not just talking about vaccinations, but also about feeding dogs. And we have this really great 11-minute video in Samburu with English subtitles on not just, it's important to bring your dog for vaccinations, but it's all about dog welfare. And we show that film within to the communities all the time. And we're really working with women in particular about this issue of feeding, because well-fed dogs obviously are not going to go chasing after dik-diks and squirrels, but it is something, especially in the droughts, we have seen a bit more of an uptake in wildlife killing because communities can barely feed themselves, let alone their dogs. It's now, this is the time dogs will do really well because of the rains. The ceremonies are starting. There'll be goats and cows everywhere that the communities will be having part of their ceremony. So the dogs will do really well now, and their welfare will greatly improve in the next couple of months if it hasn't already. And we will start seeing a reduction in how much wildlife are being attacked by dogs. But as far as we can see, the numbers are fairly, within this community conservancy, they've stayed at about 700, 800 over the last couple of years. It hasn't gone up so much, but a big difference is the fact that they're all owned. There's no stray dogs.
Right. The only challenge maybe related to that is like what we've seen, especially during drought, is more of like the influx of dogs from like other areas in which you don't work in, coming into like, coming into where we do operate and where we do all the Kuras Pride, where we have the Kuras Pride program. And that the challenge has been maybe the dogs coming in are not vaccinated, dogs coming in and maybe there where they've come from, not much of the conservation happening, and so that sometimes brings a lot of challenges related to that. Yes.
Yeah, I Christoph just had to dash quickly, but he'll be back. He just had to go, I think maybe, but he'll be back. But I just wanted to say this is such an interesting conversation because many areas of the snow leopard range, we face the same issue of how to deal with these dog populations and taking care of welfare. So I hope we can actually continue this conversation because of your experience. But before we do so, we do have two more questions that have come up.
Yeah.
In the last few seconds, I wanted to ask how you guys combine monitoring and research with community-led conservation. Because I think, I mean, you guys are not only a community-led conservation NGO, you also are actively monitoring, understand your cats. And that's really fascinating how you do that through the community. So if you could share a little bit about that, it would be great.
That's
That's a
definitely a tricky question.
that's a
Definitely.
that's a very interesting question because I mean a lot of times you can ask whether you're like a research organization or a conservation organization, but I mean to try and answer it, Ewaso Lions is more of about conservation, like the actual conservation things you can actually do when it comes to I mean protecting lions, and all these work we do is, as we say, like it's more focused on the community, more community-led. But at the end of it, you also have, I mean, kind of like a research or science part of it, which is actually trying to collect data and numbers to actually guide and help us to see what we are actually doing is working or is taking us to the right direction. And after that, what can we actually do to more like advise on the programs we are doing? So in a nutshell, we are much more of a conservation focused organization, but with science to guide us on what we are doing. Shiv?
Sorry, I was muted. Yes, I mean, I'm the worst person to talk about science, but yes, I think for so long it was very low as a priority. We were
Correct.
just really focusing on all the community work, and our science and research really kind of did fall apart. But I think it's here's a great example when Toby came on board and then built up his team. Now there's 4 in the research team because everything is being guided by what the team of 4 are coming out with, whether it's the collaring, whether it's the data the warriors are collecting, now the Mama Simba are collecting data, which we didn't have before. So each of our programs now, there is data coming in, and each of the program leaders are being trained on how to collect data that then goes over to the research team. So it's something we've really strengthened in the last couple of years. It wasn't quite there originally. I mean, it was a little bit through my PhD, but it really did pick up a lot in the last, I would say, 5 years, because a lot of our programs needed that backing. So yeah.
Right.
Thank you both. And then we do have one more question from Flavia. Kustub, sorry, we got in extra questions. She's asking if there's any work going on about the control of invasive plant species.
Toby, you want to get that one?
This is, I mean, I'll start. This is the bulk of the Mama Simba. One of their focus has been working together with the bioinfrastructure program. One of their focus has been on control of the invasive species. Unfortunately, parts of the areas you work has been like, it has been colonized by these huge trees of invasive species, and not much can be done about that. But what the Mama Simba project is trying to do is to uproot the new seedlings that are coming up. I mean, because the type of invasive species we're having, once it goes beyond, is it 20 or 30 centimeters, then definitely not much can be done because its roots goes very, very deep into the soil. But now what the Mama Simba is trying to, control it by, at least we got like these devices for uprooting them. So what we're doing is within like the areas we're trying to uproot them. And that is part of their work part of their daily. We're going out with the help of, of the research team, mapping them up, figuring out who they are, and then like mobilizing the mamas and mobilizing the community to just go and uproot them before they become too big.
Justine Kustub, I'm afraid I have to dash. I have Generia calling me about the lioness Nana and the vet, so I'm gonna have to dash. But if there's more questions, I know Toby can tackle that. But I just wanted to thank you again for this great opportunity. It's so nice to meet everyone, and I love these questions because I feel there's so much similarities in all the work that we do.
Thank you, Shivani, for your time, and please attend that call. I was just going to wrap up anyway and say that maybe a series of discussions on each of these programs that you guys are leading. Each of them has so much from that one can learn from them. So thank you very much for sharing, and hopefully Raki and Justine will continue bothering you both for more lectures in the future, even more focused on some of these specific issues, like how Sarah is dealing with infrastructure and how she's building that communication around that issue without being threatening or without seeming like a threat or an anti-development or creating an anti-development narrative. Fascinating learnings there, and I'm sure everyone has a lot to learn from your experiences. So Justine, maybe we can have more of these lectures from our friends in Kenya. Why not? I'm always greedy and perennially optimistic, so hopefully it will work. But go ahead. Sorry.
Exchanges, Kustub. I mean, I think it would be fascinating to build links and exchanges because they're both, many of the snow leopard landscapes are pastoralist communities. So
absolutely.
so much. Yeah, we can learn from each other.
Excellent. All right. So with that, I think if there are no more questions, I'd just like to express a big thank you to Toby and Shivani for making the time. While you're traveling, Toby and Shivani was in the middle of in the middle of a crisis that she's trying to help coordinate as well. But thank you so much for joining in.
It's been a pleasure meeting all of you, and it's been our pleasure talking to you. Chatting with you guys about what you do in Samburu. And so thank you guys. So much, and looking forward to more of this.
Wonderful work, and look forward to finally getting to meet you all in person sometime soon.
Right. You're welcome. Yeah.
Thank you.
Right.
And
Thank you.
have a good day, good evening, all.
Thank you, guys.
Bye, everyone.
Bye.
Bye-bye.